Daniel slammed his car door so hard the whole parking lot could hear it. His hands were shaking. His face was red. He had just got off the phone with his girlfriend Lisa, and the thing she said cut him deep. She called him selfish. She said he only cared about money. She told him he would never change. And the worst part, he did not know if she was wrong. But right now, he did not want to think about that. He did not want to think about anything. He just wanted to drive. So, he did. He drove through the city with no plan and no direction. The buildings passed by like a blur. The streetlights changed from green to red, but Daniel barely noticed. His mind was stuck on Lisa's voice, repeating those same cruel words over and over again. After driving for almost an hour, Daniel felt his stomach growling. He had not eaten since morning. He spotted a small diner on the side of the road. It was not the kind of place he usually went to. The paint was peeling. The sign was old. But he did not care. He just needed to sit down and eat something. He walked in and ordered a plate of chicken and rice. The food came fast. But when he looked at it, he did not feel hungry anymore. He took a few bites. The chicken tasted like nothing. The rice felt dry in his mouth. His mind was somewhere else. He kept thinking about Lisa. Why did she always make him feel so small? Why did she always have to say things? That hurt. He pushed the plate away. There was still a lot of food left on it. He stood up and walked toward the door. But he forgot something. His phone was sitting right there on the table next to the plate. His mind was too full of anger to notice. Not long after Daniel walked out, a young girl walked in. Her name, was Sophie. She was 22 years old. Her clothes were torn. Her shoes had holes in them. Her hair was messy and tangled. She had not eaten in 3 days. 3 whole days. Dire zits. Her stomach was empty and her body felt weak. She could barely stand straight. When Sophie saw the plate of food still sitting on the table, her eyes grew wide. The smell hit her nose, and her whole body ached with hunger. She looked around the diner. No one was watching. The waiter was busy in the back. The few customers there were looking at their own plates. Sophie walked slowly to the table. She sat down. Her hands were shaking. She knew this was not her food. She knew someone had left it behind, but her body was screaming for something to eat. She could not stop herself. She picked up the fork and started eating. The chicken tasted like the best thing she had ever had. The rice felt warm in her empty stomach. For one small moment, she forgot all the pain of being homeless. But that moment did not last long. The door of the diner swung open. Daniel walked back in. He had realized his phone was missing and came back to get it when his eyes landed on Sophie, sitting at his table, eating from his plate. Something inside him snapped. He was already angry from the fight with Lisa. He was already frustrated with his life. And now, some stranger, eating his food like it belonged to her. Daniel marched over to the table. His voice was loud. "What do you think you are doing? That is my food. Are you stealing from me?" Sophie froze. The fork fell from her hand. She looked up at Daniel, and her whole body went stiff with fear. His eyes were dark with anger. His jaw was tight. He was tall and well-dressed, and everything about him screamed power and money. And there she was, a homeless girl with dirt on her face and holes in her shoes, caught eating someone else's leftovers. "I am so sorry," she whispered. Her voice was so quiet, Daniel almost did not hear it. "I was just so hungry. I have not eaten in days. I did not mean to take anything. I am sorry." But Daniel did not listen. He could not. The anger inside him was too loud. It drowned out everything else. He did not see a hungry girl in front of him. He only saw someone taking what was his. "That does not matter," he said, his voice cold. "You do not just take things that do not belong to you. Get out." Sophie stood up. Tears filled her eyes. She wanted to say more. She wanted to explain. But the look on Daniel's face told her there was no point. She turned around and walked out of the diner. Her shoulders were low, her head was down. The tears fell silently down her cheeks as she disappeared into the dark street. Daniel grabbed his phone from the table and sat back down. He should have felt better. He got his phone back. He told that girl off. But something was wrong. He did not feel better at all. In fact, he felt worse. There was a heavy feeling in his chest that was not there before. He tried to ignore it. He tried to tell himself that he did the right thing. But the picture of Sophie's face stayed in his head. Those big, sad eyes. That quiet voice saying, "I have not eaten in days." He shook his head and left the diner. But that night when he lay in bed, he could not sleep. Sophie's face kept appearing in the dark. Every time he closed his eyes. The next morning, Daniel woke up still feeling heavy. He picked up his phone and called Lisa. He thought maybe they could fix things. Maybe she had calmed down. Maybe they could talk it out like normal people. After all, they had plans. A big company dinner was coming up in 2 days. It was one of the biggest events of the year. Important business people would be there. Investors, partners, everyone who mattered. And Daniel needed to show up with someone on his arm. He could not go alone. Lisa picked up the phone. Her voice was flat and cold. She did not say hello. She did not ask how he was. She went straight to the point. She told Daniel that if he wanted her to come to the dinner, she needed money. A lot of money. $50,000 just to show up and stand next to him for one night. Daniel could not believe what he was hearing. "Are you serious?" he said. "You want me to pay you to come to a dinner with me? What kind of relationship is this?" Lisa did not care. She repeated herself. 50,000, or she was not coming. Then she hung up the phone. Daniel sat there, staring at his phone. His heart felt like it was being squeezed. This was the woman he had been with for 2 years, and now she wanted money just to be seen with him. He felt sick. He felt disgusted. But more than anything, he felt alone. Because now he had a big problem. The dinner was in 2 days. Everyone would be there with their wives or girlfriends. If he showed up alone, people would talk. They would think something was wrong. And in his world, image was everything. He paced around his living room trying to think of a solution. He went through his phone. He called a few friends. No one was available. Everyone had their own plans. He was running out of time and running out of options. And then it hit him like a flash of lightning in a dark sky. Sophie, the homeless girl from the diner. He remembered her face, even under all the dirt and the messy hair. He had seen something. She was beautiful, really beautiful. If she cleaned up, if she wore the right clothes, if she did her hair, she could easily pass as someone from his world. No one would ever guess the truth. The idea sounded crazy. He knew that, but he had no other choice. The next morning, Daniel got in his car and drove back to the area near the diner. He searched the streets looking for Sophie. He drove slowly, scanning every corner, every bench, every alley. After almost 2 hours, he found her. She was sitting on the sidewalk near a bus stop. A thin blanket was wrapped around her shoulders. Her eyes were staring at the ground when she saw Daniel walking toward her. Something changed in her face. The sadness disappeared. Anger took its place. Her jaw got tight. Her eyes got narrow. She remembered everything, the yelling, the humiliation, the way he made her feel. Like she was nothing. She did not want to see him. She did not want to talk to him. She wanted him to go away. Daniel stopped in front of her. He could see the anger in her eyes, and he knew he deserved it. He took a deep breath and said, "I am sorry. I know I treated you badly. I was angry about something else and I took it out on you. That was wrong." Sophie did not move. She did not blink. She just stared at him with those cold eyes. "Why are you here?" she asked. Her voice was steady, but there was no warmth in it. Daniel told her the truth. He explained everything. The dinner, Lisa, the money, how he needed someone to go with him. He told her she was beautiful and that with the right clothes and a little preparation, She could easily be his date for the night. He would pay her good money. More money than she had ever seen. Sophie almost laughed. You yelled at me for eating leftover food. And now, you want me to pretend to be your date? You must be joking. Daniel shook his head. I am not joking. I will pay you $10,000 just for one night. Sophie went quiet. $10,000. She repeated the number in her head. $10,000 could change everything. She could get food. She could rent a room. She could buy new clothes. She could start over. It was more money than she had ever dreamed of having. But the thought of spending even one night, pretending to be with this man who had treated her so badly, made her stomach turn. She did not trust him. She did not like him, and she did not want to owe him anything. Daniel could see her thinking. He waited. He did not push. He just stood there quietly, letting her decide. After a long silence, Sophie finally spoke. Fine, but this is not for you. This is for me. This is for the money. Nothing else. I do not like you. I do not trust you. And the second that dinner is over, I am gone. Daniel nodded. That is fair. They shook hands. It was cold. It was business, nothing more. The day of the dinner came. Daniel had arranged everything. He hired a stylist to do Sophie's hair and makeup. He bought her a dress. Not just any dress. A long dark blue evening gown that looked like it was made for a queen. He bought her shoes and jewelry to match. When Sophie stood in front of the mirror, dosh, she could not believe what she was seeing. The girl staring back at her looked like someone from a magazine. Her hair was smooth and shining. Her skin was glowing. Her eyes looked bigger and brighter. The dress hugged her body perfectly. She touched her face with her fingers. Is this really me? She whispered to herself. When Daniel came to pick her up, he stopped in the doorway. His mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. He just stood there, staring at her. She was not just beautiful, she was breathtaking. For a moment, he forgot who she was. He forgot about the plan. He forgot about the dinner. All he could see was her. Sophie noticed him staring. She raised an eyebrow. Are we going, or are you just going to stand there all night? Daniel cleared his throat. Right. Let us go. They arrived at the dinner. It was held in a grand hotel. Crystal lights hung from the ceiling. The tables were covered in white cloth. Waiters in black suits walked around with trays of food and drinks. Everyone there was rich. Everyone there was powerful. And everyone stopped to look when Daniel walked in with Sophie. Whispers filled the room. Who is she? Where did he find her? She is gorgeous. People could not stop staring. Sophie felt their eyes on her. At first, she felt nervous. Her palms were sweating. Her heart was beating fast. But then, something inside her shifted. She lifted her chin. She straightened her back. And she walked through that room like she owned it. Daniel introduced her to his business partners, to investors, to people who could make or break deals with one phone call. And Sophie did not miss a beat. She smiled at the right moments. She asked smart questions. She laughed softly at their jokes. She was polite but not shy, confident but not arrogant. Everyone was charmed. One of Daniel's closest business partners, a man named Richard, pulled Daniel aside during the dinner. He grabbed Daniel's arm and whispered, "Where have you been hiding this woman? She is incredible." Daniel smiled. But inside, his mind was spinning. He was starting to see Sophie differently, not as a homeless girl he paid to come, but as someone special, someone real. The dinner ended. As they walked to the car, the cool night air hit their faces. Daniel turned to Sophie. He told her she was amazing, that she had done something incredible tonight. Sophie shrugged. "I did what you paid me to do," she said. Her voice was flat. No emotion. Just business. Daniel pulled out an envelope and handed it to her. The $10,000. Sophie took it, counted it quickly, and put it in her purse. She thanked him. Then she turned to walk away. Daniel watched her go, and for the first time in a long time, He felt something he could not explain. He did not want her to leave. 3 days later, Daniel was sitting in his father's office. His father's name was Robert. Robert was a tough man. He built his business from nothing and turned it into an empire worth hundreds of millions. He was old now. His hair was gray. His face was lined with wrinkles. But his eyes were still sharp as knives. Nothing got past him. Robert looked at his son and said something that hit Daniel. Like a truck, I am not giving you the company. Not yet. Not until you find a wife. I need to know there is someone beside you. Someone who will keep you grounded. Someone who will make you a better man. Until then, the company stays with me. Daniel felt the air leave his lungs. The company. The thing he had worked his whole life for. The thing his father had promised him. And now, it was being held hostage because he did not have a wife. He tried to argue. He told his father he did not need a wife to run a company. But Robert was not the kind of man you argued with. His word was final. Find a wife, he said. Then we will talk. Daniel left the office, feeling like the ground had been pulled from under him. His mind was racing. Where would he find a wife? Lisa was out of the question. He could never trust her again. He went through the names in his head. Old friends, people from college, women he had met at parties. None of them felt right. And then, one name appeared in his mind, like a light in the darkness. Sophie. He called her that same night. Sophie was surprised to hear from him. She thought their deal was done. Daniel spoke quickly. He told her about his father, about the company, about the condition. He needed her to pretend to be his fiancée, not for one night, for as long as it took. To convince his father. Sophie was quiet for a long time. Then she asked the only question that mattered. How much? Daniel offered her $5,000 a month, plus he would rent her apartment for her. A real apartment with a bed and a kitchen and hot water. No more sleeping on the streets, no more begging, no more hunger. Sophie closed her eyes. She thought about the cold nights on the sidewalk. She thought about the hunger that never went away. She thought about the shame of begging strangers for money. And then she thought about a warm bed, a full fridge, a roof over her head, she said. Yes, but she made one thing clear. This is not real, she told Daniel. I am doing this for the money and for a place to live. Do not expect anything else from me. I do not have feelings for you, and I never will. Daniel agreed. He felt the same way. This was a business deal, nothing more. Daniel rented Sophie a small but nice apartment in a quiet part of the city. He filled the fridge with food. He bought her new clothes. Not fancy party clothes this time, just normal everyday things. Jeans, shirts, a warm jacket, things she had not had in years. Sophie walked through the apartment touching everything. The soft couch, the clean kitchen counter, the warm blankets on the bed. She sat down on the edge of the bed and cried. Not because she was sad, but because she had forgotten what it felt like to have a home. 2 weeks later, it was time. Daniel drove Sophie to his family's house to meet his father. The house was massive. It sat on top of a hill, surrounded by tall trees and green grass. There was a fountain in the front yard, and the driveway was longer than some streets Sophie had lived on. Sophie's heart was pounding as they walked to the front door. She had practiced what to say. She had gone over the story 100 times, how they met, how long they had been together, what she did for a living. Every detail had been planned. Robert was waiting in the living room. He stood when they walked in. His eyes moved to Sophie immediately. He studied her face, her posture, the way she walked, the way she held Daniel's hand. Sophie smiled and walked up to him. She shook his hand firmly. "It is so nice to finally meet you, sir," she said. "Daniel has told me so much about you." Her voice was calm. Her smile was warm. Her eyes was steady. Robert looked at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, a small smile appeared on his face. "Well," he said, "Daniel finally did something right." The evening went better than either of them expected. Sophie talked to Robert about his business. She asked about how he started. She listened carefully when he told his stories. She laughed at his jokes. She complimented his wife, Margaret, on the beautiful home. She helped clear the dishes after dinner, even though Margaret told her she did not have to. Robert was impressed. By the end of the night, he had told Daniel privately that Sophie was remarkable. She is smart. She is kind. She is real. Do not let her go, son. Daniel smiled. But inside, he felt a sharp sting of guilt, because everything his father loved about Sophie was real, but their relationship was not. Margaret, however, was not so easy to fool. She was a quiet woman who watched more than she spoke, and she had been watching Sophie all night. Something about the girl did not sit right with her. She could not explain it. It was just a feeling that something was off. She mentioned it to Robert later that night. Something about that girl, she said. I do not trust her. Robert waved his hand. You worry too much, he told her. She is a good girl. I can see it in her eyes. But Margaret was not convinced. She kept her thoughts to herself, but she made a promise to herself she would find out the truth. A week later, Robert invited Sophie to spend the weekend at the family house. He wanted to know her better. He wanted her to feel like part of the family. Daniel was nervous. The longer this went on, the harder it was to keep the lie going, but he had no choice. The company was on the line. Sophie arrived on Friday evening. Robert greeted her with a big hug. He treated her like she was already his daughter. He showed her around the garden. He told her about the family history. He introduced her to the family dog, a big golden retriever named Max. Sophie knelt down and petted Max, and the dog licked her face. Robert laughed. He likes you, he said. That means you are good people. But Margaret watched from the window, her arms crossed, her face still. She was not laughing. There was another person in the house that weekend. Daniel's younger sister, Clara. Clara was 25 years old. She was sharp, she was curious, and she was very protective of her brother. When she met Sophie, she smiled politely, but her eyes were searching. She wanted to know who this woman was and where she came from. Clara sat next to Sophie during dinner that night. She asked her questions. Where did you grow up? What school did you go to? What do your parents do? Sophie answered everything smoothly. She had prepared for this, but Clara noticed something. Small things. The way Sophie held her fork. The way she hesitated before answering certain questions. The way her eyes flickered, when she talked about her past. After dinner, Clara went to her room and called Daniel. She told him straight, I do not believe her story. Something is not right. Daniel tried to calm her down. He told her she was being paranoid. But Clara was not the kind of person who let things go. That night, Sophie was lying in the guest room, staring at the ceiling. The house was quiet. She could hear the wind outside. She thought about everything that had happened. How just a few months ago she was sleeping on a bench in the cold, and now she was lying in a soft bed in a millionaire's house pretending to be his son's fiancée. She turned over and closed her eyes, but she could not sleep because there was something she had not told Daniel, something she had not told anyone. She was starting to feel something she did not want to feel. Every time Daniel smiled at her, every time he opened the car door for her, every time he asked if she was okay, something inside her moved, something warm, something scary. She pushed it down. She told herself it was not real. She told herself it was just the situation. She told herself that when this was over, she would walk away and never look back. But deep down, she was not so sure. The weekend ended. Robert was more convinced than ever. He started talking about wedding dates. He mentioned grandchildren. He talked about Sophie joining the family business. The lie was growing bigger and bigger, and Daniel could feel it pressing down on him like a weight he could not carry. Back in the city, Lisa had been watching from a distance. She had heard through friends that Daniel was seeing someone new. She had seen pictures from the company dinner. She had seen Sophie, and she was furious. Lisa spent days trying to find out who Sophie was. She asked Daniel's friends. She searched online. She even went to the diner where Daniel and Sophie first crossed paths and asked the waiter if he knew anything. And slowly, piece by piece, she put the puzzle together. The homeless girl Daniel yelled at weeks ago was the same woman now pretending to be his fiancée. Lisa's blood boiled. She could not believe it. He chose a homeless girl over her. A street beggar, someone who had nothing. This was an insult, a slap in the face, and she was not going to let it go. Lisa drove straight to Sophie's apartment. She knocked on the door, hard. When Sophie opened it, Lisa pushed her way inside. Her face was twisted with anger. Her voice was loud and sharp. "I know who you are," Lisa said, pointing her finger at Sophie. "You are nobody. You are a homeless girl pretending to be something you are not. And you need to stay away from Daniel. He is mine." Sophie stood still. She did not flinch. She did not step back. She looked at Lisa with calm, steady eyes. And then she spoke. Her voice was quiet but firm. "If he was yours," she said, "he would not have called me. He would not have asked me to come. He would not have paid you to disappear. So maybe you should ask yourself why he chose a homeless girl over you." Lisa's face went white. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. She was embarrassed. She was humiliated. She had come here expecting to scare Sophie away. But instead, Sophie had cut her deeper than any insult ever could. Lisa turned and walked out. She slammed the door behind her. Her hands were shaking. Her eyes were burning with tears. But she was not done. Not even close. That same night, Lisa picked up her phone and called Margaret. She told her everything. She told her Sophie was homeless. She told her the whole relationship was fake. She told her Daniel had paid Sophie to pretend to be his fiancée just to get the company. She told her Sophie was a poor orphan with no family, no money, and no future. Margaret listened quietly. When Lisa finished, Margaret said 2 words, "Thank you." Then she hung up. Margaret sat in her chair for a long time after that call. Her face was hard. Her jaw was tight. In her mind, the worst thing was not the lie. The worst thing was that her son wanted to bring a poor girl into their family. A girl from the streets, a girl with nothing. In Margaret's world, that was unacceptable. Rich people married rich people. That was how it had always been. That was how it should always be. The next morning, Margaret went to Daniel's office. She did not knock. She walked straight in and closed the door behind her. Her eyes were burning with anger. She told Daniel she knew everything. She knew about Sophie. She knew about the lie. She knew about the money. Daniel felt his whole world stop. His mother stood in front of him, her face like stone, and he knew there was no point in denying it. He tried to explain. He told her it was just a plan, just a way to get his father to hand over the company. He said he did not have feelings for Sophie. He said it was all business. Margaret shook her head. "I see the way you look at her," she said. "You think I am blind? You think I do not notice how your voice changes when you talk about her? You think I do not see how you smile when she walks into the room? This is not business, Daniel. You are falling for this girl, and I will not allow it." Daniel tried to deny it, but the words got stuck in his throat. Because somewhere deep inside, he knew his mother was right. He had been trying to ignore it. He had been trying to push it away, but the truth was there, sitting in his chest, like a fire he could not put out. Margaret told him she was going to tell Robert. Daniel begged her not to. He got on his knees and begged. He said it would ruin everything. He said the company would be lost. But Margaret did not care. She walked out of his office and went straight home. That evening, Margaret sat Robert down and told him everything. She told him about Sophie's real background, about the fake relationship, about the money Daniel had been paying her. She expected Robert to explode. She expected him to be furious. She expected him to be diminy Daniel on the spot. But Robert just sat there. He was quiet for a long time. Then he looked at his wife and said something. That shocked her. I do not care. Margaret blinked. What do you mean, you do not care? Robert leaned back in his chair. I have spent my whole life building this company. I started with nothing. I was poor too. I know what it is like to have nothing, and I know what it takes to survive. That girl has survived things we cannot even imagine. She is strong. She is smart. She is kind. The only thing that bothers me is that my son lied to me. But Sophie, I do not have a problem with Sophie. Margaret could not believe what she was hearing. She sat there speechless. All her anger, all her planning, all her certainty that Robert would side with her. And it was gone, just like that. Robert picked up the phone and called Daniel. Come home, he said. We need to talk. When Daniel arrived, he was trembling. He sat down in front of his parents, ready for the worst. Robert looked at him with calm but serious eyes. Tell me the truth, he said. All of it. Daniel took a deep breath. And then he told them everything. He told them about the dinner, about paying Sophie to come, about the fake engagement, about how it was all supposed to be a simple plan to get the company. But then his voice changed. It got softer, quieter. He told them that somewhere along the way, something happened, something he did not plan for, something he could not control. He told them he fell in love with Sophie, real love, not the fake kind they had been performing, but real, deep, honest love. He said he did not know when it happened. Maybe it was the night at the dinner when she stood next to him and made him feel like he could do anything. Maybe it was the way she laughed, or the way she looked at him when she thought he was not watching. Or maybe it was the way she never asked him for more than what he offered. She never complained. She never demanded. She just was. Robert smiled. For the first time in weeks, he actually smiled. Then go tell her, he said. Tell her how you feel. Because if there is one thing I have learned in this life, it is that love does not come around often. And when it does, you hold on to it. You do not let it go. Daniel drove to Sophie's apartment that night. His heart was beating so hard he could feel it in his ears. He knocked on the door. When Sophie opened it, she looked surprised. She was wearing simple clothes, no makeup, no fancy dress, just her. And to Daniel, she had never looked more beautiful. He sat down on her couch. She sat across from him. He could see the confusion in her eyes. She asked him what was wrong. Daniel looked at her. His eyes were full of something she had never seen before. Something raw, something real. And then he said it. I love you, Sophie. I did not plan for this. I did not want this. But it happened, and I cannot pretend anymore. You are not just part of some deal to me. You are everything. You changed me. You made me see things I was too blind to see before, and I do not want to go another day without telling you how I feel. Sophie did not move. She did not breathe. The room was so quiet you could hear the clock ticking on the wall. Her eyes were wide, her lips were slightly open, and then, slowly, a tear rolled down her cheek. She told him something that broke his heart and healed it at the same time. She said she had been in love with him too, since the night of the dinner. Since the moment he looked at her like she was more than just a homeless girl. Since the moment he treated her like she mattered. But she had been afraid. Afraid that if she said anything, he would end the arrangement. Afraid that he would laugh at her. Afraid that a man like him could never love a girl like her. Daniel moved closer to her. He took her hands in his. They were warm. He looked into her eyes and said, "You are not a homeless girl to me. You are the woman I love. And I do not care where you came from. I only care where we are going." Right there, in that small apartment, with the city lights shining through the window, Daniel got down on one knee. He did not have a ring. He did not have a plan. He just had his heart, and he offered it to her. "Will you marry me?" he asked. Sophie looked at him through her tears, and with a voice full of love and disbelief, she said, "Yes." When Lisa heard the news, yes. When Lisa heard the news, she lost her mind. She called Margaret one last time, trying to convince her to stop the wedding. She ranted about how Sophie was not good enough, how she was poor, how she did not belong, how she was just a street girl who got lucky. But this time, Margaret did not listen, because something had changed. Margaret had seen the way Daniel looked at Sophie when he told them he loved her. She had seen the light in his eyes. She had seen something she had never seen in her son before, real happiness. And as much as it went against everything she believed, she could not deny it. Sophie made her son happy. And in the end, that was all that mattered. Margaret told Lisa to stop calling. She told her that Sophie was going to be part of their family. She told her that Daniel's happiness was more important than any amount of money or status. And then she hung up. Lisa sat alone in her apartment. The phone was silent. The room was empty. She had lost. She had lost Daniel. She had lost the money. She had lost everything. The anger inside her turned to shame. The shame turned to sadness. And the sadness turned to regret. 2 weeks later, Lisa packed her bags and left the country. She moved to London, hoping to start a new life. But deep inside, she knew the truth. She had let something real slip through her fingers because she was too busy chasing money. And now, it was too late. Clara, Daniel's sister, was the last person to come around. She had been suspicious of Sophie from the beginning. She had asked questions. She had dug for answers, and when the truth came out, she was angry. Not because Sophie was poor, but because she felt her brother had been dishonest with the family. For days, Clara refused to speak to Daniel. She ignored his calls. She did not reply to his messages. She felt betrayed. She felt like her whole family had been made fools of. And she blamed Sophie for it. In her mind, Sophie was the one who had agreed to the lie. Sophie was the one who had walked into their home and pretended to be someone she was not. But then, one afternoon, something happened that changed everything. Clara was driving through the city when she saw something that made her pull over. On the sidewalk near the old bus station, a woman was giving food to a group of homeless people. She was handing out sandwiches and bottles of water. She was kneeling down, talking to them, smiling at them, treating them like they were her family. It was Sophie. Clara sat in her car and watched. She watched Sophie hug an old man who was crying. She watched Sophie wrap a blanket around a young boy who was shivering. She watched Sophie sit on the cold ground next to a woman and listen to her story for almost 20 minutes. No one was watching. No one was watching. No cameras. No audience. No Daniel. Sophie was not doing this for show. She was doing this because she cared. Something broke inside Clara. All her anger, all her suspicion, all her judgment, it melted away because in that moment she saw the truth. Sophie was not pretending to be kind. She was kind. She was not pretending to care about people. She cared. She had been on those streets herself. She knew what it felt like to be hungry and cold and invisible. And even now that she had a warm apartment and money in her pocket, she had not forgotten where she came from. That evening, Clara drove to Sophie's apartment. She knocked on the door. When Sophie opened it, Clara did not say anything at first. She just stood there, looking at Sophie with different eyes. Eyes that were no longer filled with doubt. Eyes that were filled with something else. Respect. Clara sat down and looked at Sophie with serious eyes. She told her that she had watched her carefully for weeks. She had seen how Sophie treated her father, how she laughed at his jokes, how she helped Margaret in the kitchen, how she played with Max the dog, and now she had seen something else, something that no amount of money could buy, a good heart. Clara took Sophie's hand and said, "I am sorry I doubted you. I was wrong about you. You are not what I thought you were. You are so much more. You are good for my brother, and you are welcome in this family." Sophie cried. It was the first time someone other than Daniel had truly accepted her. She had been carrying the weight of being judged her whole life. And now, for the first time, someone looked past her past and saw her for who she really was. Clara hugged her. It was tight and warm and real. And in that moment, Sophie knew she was no longer alone. She had a family now, a real one. 2 months later, on a warm Saturday afternoon, Daniel and Sophie stood in the garden of the family estate. The sun was golden, the flowers were blooming. White chairs were set up in rows. Friends and family filled every seat. The morning before the wedding, Sophie sat alone in a small room in the estate. She was looking at herself in the mirror, not at the dress, not at the makeup, just at herself, her eyes, her face. The same face that used to stare back at her from puddles on the street, the same eyes that used to cry themselves to sleep every night under a bridge. She thought about her parents. She never knew them. She grew up in a group home. She ran away when she was 16. She lived on the streets for 6 years. 6 years of hunger, 6 years of cold, 6 years of people looking through her like she did not exist. And now, here she was, about to marry a man who loved her, in a house bigger than anything she had ever imagined, surrounded by people who called her family. A knock came at the door. It was Margaret. She walked in slowly. She was holding something in her hands, a small velvet box. She sat down next to Sophie and opened it. Inside, was a beautiful pearl necklace. It was old. The pearls were slightly yellow with age, but they were real and they were priceless. "This was my mother's," Margaret said softly. "She gave it to me on my wedding day. And now, I want to give it to you." Sophie looked at the necklace, then looked at Margaret. Her eyes were wet. Margaret, her wets were wet. "You do not have to do this." Margaret reached over and put the necklace around Sophie's neck. She clasped it gently and then placed her hands on Sophie's shoulders. "I know I was hard on you," she said. "I know I judged you, and I am sorry. You are not what I expected. You are better. My son loves you. My husband loves you. My daughter loves you. And now, I love you too. Welcome to the family, Sophie." Sophie could not hold it in anymore. She broke down crying. Margaret held her. Two women from completely different worlds, holding each other in a small room, connected not by money or status, but by love. Sophie wore the pearl necklace with her simple white dress. It was not the most expensive dress. It was not the fanciest, but it was perfect. Her hair fell softly around her shoulders. Her eyes, were bright with tears of joy. Daniel stood at the altar. His hands were shaking, not from fear, from love. When Sophie walked toward him, everything else disappeared. The guests, the music, the flowers, all he could see, was her. The girl he once yelled at in a diner. The girl he paid to pretend. The girl who became his everything. They said their vows. Simple words, honest words, words that came from the deepest part of their hearts. Robert stood up and raised his glass. He looked at Sophie and said, "When my son first brought you home, I knew you were special. I did not know your story then, but I know it now, and it makes me respect you even more. You are not just my daughter-in-law. You are the heart of this family. Welcome home, Sophie." Margaret wiped a tear from her eye. Clara smiled. Even Max barked happily from the side of the garden. As the night went on and the guests danced under the stars, Daniel and Sophie found a quiet moment together. They sat on a bench near the fountain. The water sparkled in the moonlight. Daniel held her hand and said, "I am sorry for that day in the diner. I am sorry for the way I treated you. If I could go back, I would do everything different." Sophie leaned her head on his shoulder. "If you did everything different," she said, "we might not be here right now. Maybe that bad moment led us to this good one." Daniel smiled. She was right. In the weeks that followed, Robert officially handed the company over to Daniel. But Daniel did not run it alone. Sophie was right there beside him. She brought ideas. She brought energy. She brought a perspective that no one else in the company had. She understood struggle. She understood hunger. She understood what it meant to have nothing. And that understanding made her the best partner Daniel could have ever asked for. Together, they started a program to help homeless people in the city. They opened shelters. They funded job training. They gave people a second chance, because Sophie knew better than anyone that sometimes all a person needs is one opportunity, one moment, one person who believes in them. Sophie personally visited the shelters every week. She sat with the people there. She listened to their stories. She held their hands. She told them her own story. She told them about the cold nights, the empty stomach, the shame. And then she told them about the day everything changed, the day a stranger gave her a chance she did not deserve. And how that chance turned into a life she never dreamed of. One day, while visiting the shelter, Sophie saw a young girl sitting alone in the corner. The girl was about 15 years old. Her clothes were dirty. Her eyes were red from crying. She looked just like Sophie did, all those years ago. Sophie walked over and sat down next to her. She did not say anything at first. She just sat there, being present. After a few minutes, the girl looked at her and asked, "Are you really the one they talk about? The homeless girl who married the millionaire?" Sophie smiled. "I am the girl who was hungry and scared and alone, and someone gave me a chance. And now, I am here to give you one too." The girl started crying. Sophie held her. And in that moment, Sophie understood something she had never understood before. Her pain had not been for nothing. Every cold night, every empty stomach, every tear she cried on those streets, it all led to this. It all had a purpose. She went through the darkness so she could help others find the light. And every night when they came home from work, Daniel would look at Sophie and wonder how he got so lucky. How a man who once yelled at a hungry girl in a diner ended up marrying the most amazing woman he had ever known. One evening, Daniel came home late from work. He found Sophie sitting on the balcony, looking at the stars. He sat down next to her. She leaned her head on his shoulder. They sat in silence for a while. Then Sophie said something that made Daniel's eyes fill with tears. She said, "You know what I am most grateful for? It is not the house. It is not the money. It is not even the company. It is that you saw me when the whole world looked through me like I was invisible. You saw me, and that changed everything." Daniel kissed her forehead. "And you saved me," he whispered. "I was lost and angry and selfish, and you showed me what really matters." They sat there together under the stars, two people who were never supposed to meet, two people from completely different worlds, two people who found each other in the most unexpected way, and built a love that was stronger than any lie they ever told. Because in the end, it was not the lie that brought them together. It was the truth that love does not care about money. Love does not care about status. Love does not care where you come from. Love only cares about where you are going together. Life has a funny way of working out. Sometimes the people we push away are the ones we need the most. Sometimes the moments we regret the most lead us to the happiness we never expected. And sometimes the person who has nothing ends up giving us everything. Dear viewers, what lessons did you take away from this story? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, give us a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and hit that subscribe button. Do not forget to turn on notifications so you never miss our latest stories. Thanks for watching, and stay blessed.